Welcome to this explainer. Right now, as you're sitting there, a completely invisible, highly choreographed process is happening inside your body. We're going to explore exactly how we seamlessly switch fuel sources over a 24-hour cycle. It's this incredible physiological dance that keeps you energized whether you're running a marathon, eating a heavy meal, or simply fast asleep. Okay, so first things first. What do we actually mean by metabolic flexibility? Basically, it's your body's amazing ability to switch gears based on its immediate energy needs. Think of it like a hybrid car. Just like that car seamlessly shifts between a battery and a gas tank depending on how you're driving, your metabolism adapts to changing conditions. It efficiently chooses whether to burn carbohydrates or fats based on what's available and what your body demands at that exact moment.
Now get this, because the origin of this term is actually wild. Scientists didn't originally coin metabolic flexibility to talk about elite athletes or fasting diets. No, they first used it to describe a parasitic worm, helminthes. This little organism has the crazy ability to generate energy aerobically when oxygen is around or anaerobically when it's not. That versatility lets it survive massive environmental changes. And honestly, we humans rely on that exact same core concept of adaptability to navigate our complex daily lives.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll hit 1. What is metabolic flexibility? 2. Fasting and feeding transitions. 3. White adipose tissue's role. 4. The power of exercise. 5. Inflexibility in disease. And 6. Circadian rhythms in health.
All right, let's jump right into section 1. What is metabolic flexibility?
This brilliantly illustrates the whole daily cycle. You're basically watching your muscle and fat tissues constantly shifting gears between storing and burning fuel. When you're asleep, your muscles rely heavily on burning fat, while your fat tissue breaks down lipids to actually supply that fat. Then, you wake up, you eat, and boom, the arrows flip. You start burning and storing glucose, and when you hit the gym, energy demands absolutely skyrocket, requiring massive amounts of both fat and glucose breakdown to keep you moving. It's just a constant dynamic flux.
To really get this flux, we need to meet the main characters. First up, skeletal muscle. This is the engine driving fuel catabolism. In fact, skeletal muscle handles about 60 to 80% of the increase in glucose metabolism right after you eat. Then we have white adipose tissue, or WAT. We tend to think of fat as just inert baggage, right? But it's actually the ultimate fuel tank, actively orchestrating the release and storage of energy. Finally, the liver acts as the master regulator, balancing these fuels in your bloodstream.
Moving right along to section 2, fasting and feeding transitions.
So here's where the magic happens. It's all about that healthy shift from burning fat while you're fasted to burning and storing glucose when insulin spikes after a meal. When you wake up, your body's been humming along on fat stores, but the second you eat a mixed meal, insulin is released. That insulin acts like a master switch, telling your body to efficiently shift from a breaking down state to a building up state. It basically halts the release of fats and tells your muscles, hey, start pulling in and burning this new glucose.
Up next, section 3, white adipose tissue's role.
During an overnight fast, your white adipose tissue is working overtime. It orchestrates fuel flux by initiating high lipolytic activity, which is just a fancy way of saying it breaks down stored fat. It then pumps these free fatty acids, or FFAs, right into your circulation. Your skeletal muscle, our engine, picks up those FFAs and burns them to keep the lights on while you sleep. To put this in perspective, a normal weight, healthy woman can actually have as much watt as an obese man with type 2 diabetes. So it's really not just about the amount of fat you have, it's about how flexibly and efficiently that tissue functions as your supply tank.
Which brings us to section 4, the power of exercise.
Picture this. Working out can crank your energy expenditure up by 25-fold compared to just resting. Depending on how hard and how long you go, your body dynamically mixes glucose and fat oxidation to keep the engine from stalling. If you're doing high-intensity stuff like sprinting, your body leans heavily on glucose, usually through anaerobic pathways. But as you stretch that duration out, say settling into a long, steady jog, your white adipose tissue starts mobilizing way more fatty acids into the blood, and your muscles pivot to rely more heavily on that fat.
All right, section 5, inflexibility in disease. What happens when this elegant system breaks down?
This data is absolutely fascinating. Look at the stark contrast here when researchers gave trained endurance athletes and untrained individuals a lipid oversupply, basically a massive fat overload. The trained athletes shown on the left of each chart adapt beautifully. When hit with the fat overload in the dark bars, they actually dial down their glucose oxidation, ramp up their fat oxidation, and protect their muscle glycogen stores. They dynamically shift gears. But the untrained individuals, they show severe metabolic inflexibility. They literally can't switch over to burning the fat efficiently, which creates a massive gridlock in their metabolic system.
And this inflexibility completely changes how the body handles food all day long. If we track how abdominally obese men process meals, the red line shows they have a significantly reduced ability to appropriately store dietary fat in their white adipose tissue compared to the lean men in blue. Just look at how the blue line spikes and dips beautifully across 3 meals over 24 hours. That's healthy fat tissue dynamically taking up and releasing fats. The red line, though, it's totally flat and blunted. Because the obese subject's fat tissue isn't taking up the fat properly, those fatty acids just hang around in circulation, depositing in other tissues and driving insulin resistance. Let's scale this up and look at a full 24-hour cycle in a highly controlled metabolic chamber. This chart is tracking the respiratory quotient, or RQ. Think of RQ as your body's fuel gauge. Lower means you're burning fat, higher means you're burning carbs. The blue line is a healthy volunteer, and it's perfect, spiking up with breakfast, lunch, and dinner to burn carbs, and dropping nice and low at night to burn fat. Now look at the red line representing a type 1 diabetic patient. It just stays abnormally high and flat. They have a severely blunted, inflexible response, meaning they are unable to properly switch back to burning fat, especially overnight.
Finally, we reach section 6, circadian rhythms and health.
Here's the thing. Our metabolism isn't just reacting to food and exercise. It is fundamentally synced to the rotation of the planet. Human physiology relies on roughly 24-hour rhythms perfectly adapted for daytime activity and nighttime rest. Circadian health is all about how well your internal systems align with the external light-dark cycle. When you mess with this, through shift work, late-night snacking, or totally erratic sleep, you're essentially forcing your metabolic flexibility to fight against its own natural hardwired programming.
This is such a huge deal that the American Heart Association put out a scientific statement on it. Their research highlights a really powerful truth. Consistency in your sleep schedule is literally just as critical for your cardiometabolic health as the total hours you sleep. You could get 8 hours every single night, but if those hours shift wildly from day to day, you are blunting your body's ability to smoothly transition between fat and carbohydrate oxidation.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want you to consider how your own daily habits, your eating windows, and your sleep schedules are impacting the lifelong flexibility of your metabolic engine. Are you giving your body the right signals at the right times to stay metabolically nimble, or are you accidentally creating biological gridlock? Thank you so much for exploring this incredible, adaptable machinery with us today. Stay curious and keep flexible.